The fourth step in problem-solving therapy is making a positive action plan. And at the core of this positive action plan should be a SMART goal. So the client wants to think about these specifics. What exactly will you do? How will you do it? When will you do it? What are the barriers and possible solutions? How will you measure your success? And what is your reward at the end of this all? And these questions will really then guide what that SMART goal is. So let's take a minute to review SMART goals. I'm guessing this is something that you've all heard of before and maybe used in your own experiences thus far, but we will define SMART goals and give you some practice with developing them. Now, if you Google SMART goals, you'll find different variations of what this acronym means. I'm going to go with this one, but I'll acknowledge that there are probably other versions of this that you've seen or used in the past. A SMART goal is a goal that's specific, it's measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-specific. So let's go through each one of these individually. A specific goal is a goal that has enough detail to it that the client knows exactly what he or she is striving for. So let's say you have a pregnant woman whose goal is to have a healthy baby. This is a great goal, but it's not very specific, is it? So how would you make this more specific? A more specific goal might have actual metrics. I want to have a baby who goes to 40 weeks gestation and is at least 7 pounds. The goals that you help your client create should also have measurable metrics to them. You want to have outcomes that can be tracked and measured so you have clear evidence of success. This means concrete behaviors and timelines that clearly indicate to your client when and how you know the goal has been achieved. So let's say you have a client whose goal is to run faster. Well, this is somewhat specific. They want to run faster, but you can make it a lot more specific and definitely more measurable. So one way to make this more measurable would be to actually put some numbers in there. I want to run a mile in 6 minutes. We also want these goals to be action-oriented, meaning they're focused on an actual action and not just an outcome. You are helping your client determine a goal that declares a positive activity that will produce results, meaning that they're actually adding an activity to their day that will help them achieve the long-term outcomes that they want. So for example, if we had a goal of wanting to be more physically fit, this is not actually an action-oriented goal. It's an outcome, physical fitness, but what actually are you going to do to get there? So a more action-oriented goal might be something like, I am going to do aerobic workouts for 30 minutes 3 times a week for the next month. We also want to help our clients develop goals that are realistic. These goals should aim high, but they should be realistic given the situation and the patient's abilities. So for example, if we had someone who stated that their goal is to increase their sleeping time from 5 hours every night to 10 hours every night, and that change will happen tomorrow, this might not be a realistic goal for this individual, and they might need a more gradual increase in their sleeping time and more time to actually achieve that goal. We also don't want clients to set themselves up for failure. And so modifying this goal so that maybe they have a more gradual increment in the amount that they increase their sleep every night or every week would allow them to have a realistic, action-oriented goal that would eventually get to the ultimate goal of sleeping 10 hours every night. Finally, we want our goals to be time-specific. We want to specify a time period for the action or the endpoint, and that gives us a metric for our tracking. It helps your client know not only exactly what they should track, but on what timeline. And it gives us an opportunity to check back in with them. If they're going to try to achieve something for the next month, then we know that we should check in at the end of the month and see how their goals went. So if we had a client who had the goal of wanting to be better about stretching after exercising, we could definitely make this more time specific by saying, I want to stretch for 20 minutes after I exercise 3 times a week for the next month. So take a minute and see if you can determine which ones are SMART goals. If you said 1 and 3 are the SMART goals, you are correct. 2, 4, and 5 need more specific, measurable, action-oriented realistic, and time-specific components to them to look more like 1 and 3. Another critical aspect of setting goals is that we need to also put in supports for goal adherence. We can work hard to help our clients create SMART goals, but the likelihood that they will actually follow through with those goals is low if we don't also target the different factors that go into goal adherence. This figure illustrates this point, showing that goals are really at the center of a number of different factors. Self-efficacy is an extremely important foundation for an individual following through on their goals, meaning that they feel that they actually have the skills and ability to do what their goal specifies. We also know that we need strong outcome expectations to feed into goal adherence. An individual needs to believe that they will get physical, social, or self-evaluative outcomes out of completing that goal. We also know that there are social structural factors, that there are things that will facilitate their ability to adhere to their goal, but also be barriers to their ability to adhere to their goal. Ultimately, if all these things align, if we have an individual who truly believes that they can get results from their goal, who believes they have the skills and abilities to actually do that goal, and who have higher levels of facilitators than impediments, that they will be successful in adhering to that goal and ultimately getting their desired behavior. So based on this framework, there are a number of supports that we can help our clients put into place that will maximize their ability to adhere to their goals. Let's talk through each of these supports. The first is self-direction, which basically means that our client is the one who's directed their goals. And this is the essence of what we've been doing with problem-solving therapy. Our client is the one who's determined what the problem is that they want to target, how that problem is defined and conceptualized, and then is ultimately the one to create the goal of how they want to change their behavior or their situation. So they're self-directed in what their goal looks like and how they're going to follow through with it. And we know that this self-direction is really important for fostering intrinsic motivation. The second support is self-monitoring. And this is as simple as tracking your behavior. We know that individuals who track their diet, they track their exercise patterns, they track their weight, or other health behaviors are more likely to adhere to those behaviors. The third is goal specification, and this is basically what we've just been talking about with SMART goals. It means that an individual is not just stating something that they want to do and then going about it, but rather they are thinking deeply about how to make their goal a SMART goal so that it is very measurable and very clear and that they have clear metrics for success. The fourth is stimulus control, and the idea behind this support is that we are setting our environments up for success to the degree that we can. This is not always possible because, as we saw with our Starbucks example, you sometimes can't control the stimuli that you're exposed to, but you can think about what you can control and then take action on those stimuli. So for example, if someone is trying to improve their diet quality, a key stimulus control tactic would be to first start with their own home and clean out their pantry, clean out their fridge, shop for foods that are more conducive to their diet quality goals. The fifth support is self-reinforcement, and this is instilling rewards for goals that are met. This can be something that's done intrinsically, so a person can congratulate themselves on a job well done or make sure that they spend time relishing in their accomplishment. But it could also be in the form of a more extrinsic reward, where an individual treats themselves to something that's desirable for meeting their goal. The trick here, though, is that we want that reinforcement to be congruent with the goal. So you often hear people say, well, if I stick with my diet all week, I'm going to treat myself to a binge day on Sunday, or I'm going to treat myself to an ice cream sundae for a job well done. And although that might be a really desirable reinforcement, it's not in line with the ultimate values and lifestyle changes that we're trying to promote. And it really sets up this mentality of my goal is the bad thing that I really don't want to do, and this reward is the thing that I really, really want. And so really we want to encourage our clients to adopt that holistic perspective of I'm adopting these goals and the rewards that I crave are in line with these goals. So A more appropriate reinforcement for someone who sticks to their diet all week long would perhaps be that they get to treat themselves to a new hike that they've been wanting to try, or they get to buy themselves a new pair of workout shoes. So these reinforcements can still be very exciting and desirable, but are congruent with the ultimate spirit of the goal. The sixth support is social support. We know that when we commit to our goals, when we tell others about our goals, and we have that social accountability, it can be a really strong force that propels us to keep meeting our goals. And this is in line with the behavioral contract that I spoke of earlier, that when we put our goals out there into the world and we know that people are watching us and watching to see if we meet those goals, then we're more likely to stick to them because of that peer pressure, that social component. So this doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can be something that really helps a person to stay motivated and helps an individual feel like they have others they can lean on when they need support for motivation or other aspects of their problem solving. The last support is behavioral rehearsal. And this is basically the idea that we want to have someone practice that goal as much as they can so that it becomes a habit. Now, this can be the actual enactment of the behavior. For example, an individual can go to a party with a clear plan in place around how they will act around the food. They can have a clear behavioral plan that guides them to what foods they will select and how much they will eat. And by repeatedly engaging in that behavior whenever they have the opportunity, it will hopefully ingrain it as more of a habit than a volitional behavior. We can also achieve behavioral rehearsal through visualization. So this would be more an individual is reflecting on their day and their experiences, thinking about the things that went well versus the things that they wish had gone better, and then actually having a visualization where they imagine a different chain of events for those situations that didn't go as they had hoped. And this can be an effective way for then facilitating more of the action-based behavioral rehearsal. If an individual thinks through the things that didn't go as they wanted and thinks through a new plan, the likelihood that they will actually carry out that new plan in the future is much higher than if they never reflected on that experience and didn't put a plan in place. So I would encourage you to think about all these different supports for goal adherence and think about how they might play out in your field of practice. So going back to our worksheet and our example of our client who's trying to kick their Starbucks habit, you can see that step 4 here is to make a positive action plan. Again, you will ask your client these questions. What will you do? When will you do it? What might get in the way? How will you handle that? And what is the reward? At the end of the step, you want to have a SMART goal that your client helps to develop. And again, your client should really be the one to drive what the SMART goal looks like. And your role will be more to provide guidance if they ask for it, but also to help them create a SMART goal that has all the SMART principles that we discussed. After specifying the SMART goal, you will then help your client think about different supports or strategies for goal adherence that are based on 7 different strategies we just talked about. So you can present those different strategies to them and then help them think about what version of those strategies would fit into their life. So you can see that this client has set the SMART goal of I will buy black coffee instead of a venti frap with double whip every time I walk into a Starbucks for 1 month. So this goal is specific, it has measurable outcomes, it's action-oriented, it's realistic for this individual based on the pros and cons exercise they went through, and it's time-specific because it's linked to every time that individual walks into a Starbucks as well as for the next month. The supports for goal adherence directly map onto the 7 different strategies we just discussed. There's self-monitoring in that this client will track their progress in a diary. There's a social support component in that this client will post their progress on Facebook. There's an aspect of self-reinforcement in that this individual has set up weekly rewards and that they will buy themselves a new coffee mug on Saturdays if they achieve their weekly goal. There is also a behavioral rehearsal in that this individual has committed to a daily visualization. This individual has indicated that at the beginning of every day, they will visualize themselves buying black coffee every morning. The final step in problem-solving therapy is meeting with your client after they've had time to try out their strategy and reviewing their progress. If you're working with your client, you would want to make sure to schedule a follow-up appointment with them so you could check in about the progress and how things are going. This is a really important time for conversation and reflection, thinking about what's working and what's helping to solve the problem. Think about whether they are indeed adhering to their SMART goals and their reports for goal adherence, or whether they need to fine-tune things or pick a different goal because this one isn't working. So after your client has tried it and seen how it goes, they can then evaluate and adjust their goals and plan. So again, you want to ask them if they follow their action plan, did it help, and if not, what went wrong? Then you can go through the problem-solving process again to determine what might be a more appropriate goal to try this time. They may need to go through this 2 or 3 different times before they actually find success. So you can reassure your client that it's very normal not to get it on the first try, and that by revising their plan, they're only going to learn more and strengthen their ability to problem solve with repeated practice. So here you can see we have our follow-up meeting with our client, and the drinking black coffee plan didn't work so well. So they revised their plan once to try to wean the size of their drink down so it's a smaller size, and came up with various goal adherence strategies. And you can see they revised their plan again to create a SMART goal around sleeping more with appropriate goal adherence strategies for that SMART goal.